Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Bryan Hour, and this is Keep It Current, a real estate show for realtors. The goal here is to provide some free, actionable content for those of you who are currently in real estate or maybe thinking about getting into real estate. Super excited about today's show because we have not done a show in a minute. It's been a couple weeks, and you know how things get. The New Year's and retooling. We actually have a new background here because we actually moved to a new office. So a lot of great things have been going on. A lot of growth has been happening. Today, I want to bring on a very special guest. Normally, Jason Harper's with us here. He's not available right now. But I want to bring on a special guest. This is somebody that I work with on a routine basis. He's actually on my team. He is a millennial who understands millennial behavior. So we are going to be talking today to a millennial about millennials. And if that sounds even just a little bit interesting, then stick around because this one's going to be pretty fun. So I definitely don't want to beat around the bush. Let's just bring him on. What's going on, Blake?
Another day in paradise. How are you?
Good. Another day in paradise. I like the way you say that. And actually, there's a lot of people around the country right now that are really struggling with cold. We don't have that here. I think we hit 70 today. It's absolutely gorgeous. So excited about that. I hope you don't feel on the spot that I'm bringing you up to do all this. I mean, we have been talking about millennials a lot lately. We've been talking about, that they're a huge part of the buyer pool today. If you're in real estate and you're working with buyers, a lot of who you're working with, especially first-time buyers, are millennials. And so the more we talked about it, the more we engaged about it, the more I started thinking it would be pretty good to do a show here on this channel about this. I think a lot of people would gain a lot of knowledge. So, let me just ask you though, just in case people are a little bit puzzled by the whole thing, what is a millennial? I mean, what is it? What is that person?
A millennial. It's kind of a term that gets thrown around for anybody that's young. Oh, those little damn millennials. That's what I hear all the time. The millennials we're going to be talking about today are kind of more the Generation Y, from the late 20s, their age of the late 20s to late 30s, if not 40 already. And what that really is it builds up the largest demographic in population. And it's around 37% of that number is buying homes today. So nationally, when they're looking at the age of people that are buying homes over the last couple of months, the largest percentage of demographic by generation is the millennials. So wow. I think it's important to know, and kind of what we're going to talk about today, what makes millennials tick, what makes them who they are, and how, if we know who they are and what makes them tick, how can we be a better service to them?
Also, what makes you tick, because you are an admitted millennial. So why now? I mean, what has kept millennials out of the market for so long? It seems like, Lorianne and I have been selling real estate for a lot of years, and it seems like that group kind of was late to the party. I remember sitting at, various different coaching seminars and going to different Tom Ferry events, for example, where they would say, they were giving tricks and tips and techniques on how to get millennials into the buyer pool, because they just weren't buying houses. They were living with mom and dad, and they were just, they had kind of a different outlook on life. So why now? They're buying in droves. They're the largest buyer pool at this point. So what happened?
There's quite a few things that have really taken place, and the millennials have seen a lot of things happen in their life in a very short period of time. And I think one of the biggest things that has kept millennials out for so long is college. Millennials, the generation of millennials, have gone to college more as a group, as a generation than any other generation before that. I know from personal experience, my friends that got out of high school and got into the military or into a trade have already bought multiple homes. I have a buddy that's on his 5th home, and we're 31, where most of my friends that I went to college with that were the same age, they still don't own a home. They're in the process of getting pre-approved and now deciding, hey, I want to do it. But a lot of it have to do with student debt. There's so many people that went to college because that's what we were educated and told, hey, this is the next step. So they get out of college and now they have student debt and they're trying to get jobs. Well, also the millennials, most of them, like myself, we had the Great Recession. So you get this beautiful college degree, now you can't even get a job. So then they were getting jobs to have a job, but it wasn't a high-paying job. And then you have all these other outside factors that have kind of thrown into it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been a tough road, but at the end of the day, it's all going to change. One of the things that also...
and it's changing right now.
100% with inflation, everything else. One of the things about the millennials and what has kind of really jump-started this is COVID and working from home. So most people, they graduate from college, they're in college, they have an internship. Well, they go intern at some of these places. Well, most of those companies are all in metropolitan areas. Well, now as you're getting older and older, you're renting condos for crazy prices to stay close to work. Now with stay-at-home orders, people can go work from home. You know, they're getting at the age where they want to start having a family. Some people are waiting, till they have a house before they start a family. So now they're working from home. They're getting ready to start a family. They're looking with their significant other, or they're getting ready to say, hey, I'm going to start settling down. And they're running numbers and saying, look, we're spending X to rent this little condo when we can go an hour away, like the Temecula Valley, where we're getting a lot of people coming from Orange County, LA, and San Diego, because our prices are much more affordable.
Yeah,
if
no
you're
doubt.
paying $3,500 a rent at an apartment, and I can go buy a house, and my mortgage payment is going to be less than that, well, it's a no-brainer. So that's one of the biggest things I think that has kind of kept them out of the game, and it's really sped everything up. And it's being, as agents, we're seeing a lot more millennials knocking on the door.
So if we want to be really effective with millennials, as we call them, and, we want to really, look, we talk a lot about, being if they're buying and you're a buyer's agent, then you need to really make sure that you're meeting them where they're at, right? You want to be as relevant as possible to that buyer pool. It doesn't mean being fake. It just means understanding what it's like to work with a millennial and what they're kind of accustomed to, or what they're, knowing what we'll just call them, what their pain points are, pressure points, what their triggers are or aren't, what gets a millennial excited to work with an agent, if they're going to work with an agent at all, or what would make them maybe flee or run from one, right? So what is important to a millennial? Would you be able to put that into perspective for any agents that are working with millennials right now? What's important to a millennial? How can you connect and really relate to one?
I think, first and foremost, millennials have been, introduced to technology at a much younger age than any of the other generations. I'm not saying I'm tech savvy, but as a generation, we're very far advanced when it comes to technology.
So you would say being tech savvy is extremely important. Absolutely.
Being tech savvy is going to help really kind of shorten gaps and bridge a lot of gaps, where... this, Bryan, we have clients that still don't know how to use DocuSign. We have to drive over contracts to have them signed. Now, you send a millennial a DocuSign, it's easy. Boom, boom, boom. You'll have it in your inbox in no time because they carry their email, on their phone. Where different generations, you have to call them. They got to go, fire up the old school computer and then go to do it. It's easier to just deliver it to them. So
plus they appreciate it. If you're using tech like that, they appreciate it, right?
Yeah. So one of the things from a listing standpoint, we know that millennials are tech savvy. So when we list houses and just having 2 photos from your iPhone is probably not a good thing. They love the 3D tours. Yeah. They really enjoy the 3D tour. They love being able to kind of cruise the house before going there. It's like a video game. Most millennials have played a video game or 1,000 in their life. The other thing they like are, videos, because that's going to give them a different perspective on just seeing pictures on a house. And, a lot of us, or, you and I, we've kind of already implemented that and changed it. Instead of having the old school flyers in a flyer box, we create a custom website and have a URL specific to that home. I don't know how many times I'm at an open house. People pull up. About 5 minutes later, they come in. What brought you by? Oh, we saw your signs, and then we saw your URL. So we did the 3D tour, watched the video, decided we'll come take a look.
Yeah.
So we're not even meeting them in the middle. We're going beyond that on the listing side.
Definitely being tech savvy, having a good grasp on not only the tech that we use as agents, but understanding the tech that they like to use as well. We could probably take a deep dive on that, and do a completely different show just on that topic. But what would be something else other than being tech savvy? What would you say is another thing that is important to a millennial?
Authenticity. They love people that are authentic.
Okay.
We've kind of grown up with MySpace and Tom and social media. And social media is huge. We know that. You can't be a secret agent. You got to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
But also, when there's so many people out there, it's easy to spot the imposters. It's easy to point out and say, that guy's full of shit. She's, she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's easy to spot it. Yeah. So it's being authentic. It's kind of, we're going away from what the old school way was, right? Suit and tie, driving around showing property. Nothing wrong with that. Be you. If that's you, be you. But we're seeing a lot more realtors that aren't necessarily doing that. They're showing their true colors. Millennials really care about the story. We see so many companies coming up where even like Tom's shoes, right? We're making these shoes, and with every dollar we make, we're sending somewhere here. They like the story. They're going to buy into the story. When you're connecting with millennials, if you can connect to them at a deep level, share your experiences. Hey, I've been here. I've seen this happen in the transaction before. I think we do X, Y, and Z. They're going to respect you. They're going to love it that you're sharing your experiences on who you are in your business with them.
Authentic. Just be authentic. We do a lot of videos here on our team. And one of the things, and this, you're subject to my preaching constantly, is when you're doing videos, whether it's, using your iPhone or doing a video like we're doing right now. I mean, we don't have, this is total authenticity, right? We're not, we don't have a bunch of pyrotechnics in the background and dancing girls and all this stuff, right? It's just us doing us. And if we make a mistake, we just start over, Being authentic, I think, is something that a lot of us are starting to, not just the millennials, but in every generation is really starting to appreciate, because we're just overwhelmed by the fakeness of social media and so forth. So I can see why authenticity would be very high on their list as well. So what are some other things? So we've got being tech savvy, being authentic. What's something else that you really need to be aware of if you're going to really crush it with the millennial generation?
Education. Education's huge. And I say that because, most people think because we are tech savvy that we are walking Google. I don't know everything. I love learning new things. That helps me grow. One of the biggest things is there's a lot of things that have changed. There's an old way of buying houses and a new way. For example, you don't drive around, just scouring, looking for sale signs. Hoping your agent, picked up the new sheet of new listings, right? Everything's done online. But there's an education piece to that as well. So you got to educate your buyer. The other thing about buyers today is much different than before. Most millennials I talk to, in their mind, we all think we have to have 20% down to buy a house. That's not the case anymore. Most first-time buyers don't know that. Most first-time buyers, their biggest thing is, I don't have enough money saved up. Well, what are you saving up for? 20%. And also educating them on the mortgage, what a mortgage payment includes. I talk to millennials all the time, and we like to reverse engineer things. Well, we're all mortgage payment driven to an extent. And what are you looking to be in? And they'll come up with some crazy price. And I say, okay, where'd you come up with that? Well, that's what my parents pay. Well, they've lived in that home for 40 years. We're not going to be anywhere close to that. So education on that, millennials, we love to know what's going on. You tell them, hey, this is how the market is. They're going to understand it.
If I could interrupt you for just a second, it is surprising that is on your list. Speaking as a millennial, that education's on your list, because when I, being 50 something years old, think about a generation that's, quite a ways behind me, I think they are so tech savvy. They are Googling everything. They just have we live in an information driven society right now. And it's been evolving that way for quite some time. And so I just feel like, they know everything. So why would a millennial ever need us? Right. Because they probably just feel like they're so educated that they don't need us. But the reality is, like what you just said, they want to be educated.
100%.
And they need it, because it's surprising how many misconceptions they're getting by doing their own research, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't understand that you can buy a house, or many of them don't, and you do not need 20% down. And there are some incredible loan products available for first-time buyers, and loan limits are changing and all kinds of stuff. So, I think I agree. At first, I was like, no way, he's off his rocker. Blake is not thinking straight, that education is one that they need. But, thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, think about this, Brian. Since you've owned a cell phone, how many phone numbers do you remember? Not a lot.
I know my wife's phone number by heart.
Yeah.
I usually can remember my own, and that's about it.
So with all the information we have, and yes, we all should be smarter people, but our brain, we don't put them in certain I can't even think of the word right now. When we're taking in new information.
Did you just try to use a power word and you failed? Did you just fail on a power word?
I totally screwed it up. I have it on the tip of my tongue, but what I'm going to say is, as we gather information, if something is important, we are going to put it somewhere in our brain. When I go to Google and look up, something random, if it's so off the wall, I'll remember it. But if it's something like an everyday thing, we forget.
Right.
Most people can't tell you how to get to the store. They say, go to Google Maps.
Exactly.
Our generation can't drive anywhere without having to punch it in their phone. I'm guilty of that. I drive around this valley every day.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell somebody how to get somewhere. Plug it in the GPS. But it's because it's not important. It's not a priority.
Wow. Okay. So we have being tech savvy, super important to millennials. We have authenticity, very important to millennials. We have the fact that, don't forget about education. They still want to be educated. Give me one more thing before we wrap up. What's one more thing that you think is really important to keep in mind as a real estate agent when you're working with millennials?
I would say it's like their buying behaviors and kind of what we're seeing them do, because they're doing things that different generations never have.
Know their buying behaviors.
Yeah. And what I mean by that, and in California, there's a lot of changes and rules with ADUs and things like that kind of go into play. I know multiple friends that couldn't purchase a home on their own. They weren't married. So what do? They partner up together and say, let's go buy a house. Let's go buy a condo, whatever it may be, because we're going to build equity together. Whether we turn around and sell it in 2 years and go our separate ways, one of us gets married, we have a kid, whatever, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But you take two friends, go purchase a home together to get you into the game, and it's going to start building equity. And it's going to help you out. The other thing is there's more, even builders are doing this. Builders are building more and more next gen homes. And why? Well, you have multi-generational living. The other thing is, reason behind it is, if grandma and grandpa move in, they can watch the kids. Yeah. I'm at home working all day because I work remote, but I still need someone there to watch my kids. And if I can save money than taking them to daycare, great. That's going to help me on a mortgage payment. There's so many different variations of that. The other thing a lot of millennials are thinking about are buying properties where they can build an ADU. I was on the phone with a client on Thursday, and he said, Blake, I have so much space in my backyard. I want to build a 3-bedroom condo. How can we do this? What are the proper steps to take? Here to
you think that's a millennial thing, wanting to do that? You're seeing that? Okay.
And a lot
Wow.
of it, we see it as a side hustle. We're looking for ways that we don't have to pay our mortgage payment. If I'm renting out a room and that's paying for half my mortgage or a quarter of my mortgage, that's money that I can invest somewhere else.
Right.
Just because we need to be educated doesn't mean we're, dumb.
Right.
We are looking for, other ways to invest. But this specific client said, look, if I build a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom unit in the back of my house, someone will be paying my mortgage completely, entirely.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, that definitely puts a couple things into perspective. I mean, I understand that a lot of times we as buyer's agents will just kind of take what comes, right? Yeah. You get a phone call and you just start working. It's not like you're going to take a phone call and say, hey, before I start helping you as an agent, I just need to ask a question. How old are you? I need to figure out what age demographic you're in. So it's not like you're just going to automatically jump into this millennial mode, but you can tell when you meet someone about what generation they're in. And you can kind of get a feel for kind of whether, once you suspect that, oh, this is definitely a millennial, they're coming into the buyer pool like a lot of them are, and I need to at least know to make sure that I'm authentic. And that almost seems kind of weird to say. Make sure you focus on authenticity, because then it becomes not very authentic when you're really focusing on acting authentic. But really, it's not that. It's actually just cut the act, cut it all together, and just be authentic. Be tech savvy. Make sure you're focusing in on education. Don't assume that millennials just know everything because they're diving in the internet all day.
Well, think about how much
and knowing their behaviors. I think it's really important what you just said about knowing their behaviors. My goodness. They are jumping into the buyer pool, and if you look statistically, they're buying certain types of homes and looking for certain types of things. So if you show early on that you're really interested in what they're looking at and you understand what they're looking at without using the word millennial, by the way, don't ever use the word millennial when working with millennial. They're just people. All right. This is shop talk using that terminology. It's just being aware of that age group. But I wanted to ask, before we wrap up, one last thing. So other than the things that I just mentioned, why do we even really care about this? I mean, I just listed a few things, but when we were backstage, you mentioned a couple things too. And I mean, why is it important? Why is it important that we understand who our buyer is?
Well, a few reasons. So one, we know that more and more people are still looking to buy a house, right? It's still the American dream to own a home. Over any other type of investment, people want to buy homes. With that being said, we got to know where the largest demographic's coming from. If we know the largest demographic are millennials, then that is an area that we should kind of tailor and make sure that we know how to communicate with them, because communication's huge, no matter the generation. With my senior clients, elderly, 55 plus and older, they prefer me to pick up the phone and give them a call. They don't like texting as much, right? I have millennial clients that say during the day, during this hour and this hour, send me an email. After 5 o'clock, you can text me. So it all depends, and that's part of it. So if you're understanding what your consumer is looking for, it's going to make us better agents all the way around.
Yeah, totally agree. Wow, that's fascinating. I wanted to share this really quick infographic that we have both put out on our social media pages today. It's pretty interesting. I mean, you can see that, real estate is still a clear leader in what people are investing in. I mean, you've got 41% of the general public is stating that they would rather invest in real estate right now than stocks or gold or, just have savings. There's some other things.
Something to kind of touch on while we have this, crypto's not on this list.
Yeah.
I would assume that it's probably in between gold and stocks and mutual funds, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But we know, because we've discussed it in our office, more and more people are buying houses now with cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
People are turning in their 401ks as a down payment. Last week, I think it was, someone just bought a home with an NFT. As the world is changing and technology is changing, if we're not up and up with it on the real estate end, and we don't have a little bit of an idea of what they're looking for and what questions they're going to ask, Because I've had clients, hey, I have X amount in crypto. Can I use that? Well, I'm not your lender. You got to talk to the lender. But that is a real thing. And people are buying homes now with Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even if that's, slower to come than we initially thought it would be, it is a real thing, and it is coming. And the last thing you want to do, look, you don't have to know everything about crypto, but you have to at least be aware that some of the first homes have now started to be purchased with cryptocurrency, and so
it's a good time
to at least know it, right?
Well, it's a good time to bring that conversation up with your escrow officer. Can somebody purchase a home here with crypto?
Yeah.
If they say no, well, you might want to be prepared to have an alternative escrow company in case someone comes and wants to purchase a home with crypto.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's fascinating stuff. Listen, let's wrap it up. I want to be sensitive about people's time, and very good stuff. I'm so glad I brought on a millennial to the show, and I'm still alive to talk about it.